Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Second in Command podcast. My name is Timothy Simons. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host,
Matt Walsh.
We used to be a Veep Rewatch podcast, but now we do this. We examine the politics of cinema in cinema about politics.
Sure. We watch movies with presidents and vice presidents.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a great guest.
We have a great guest, one I'm very excited about. Past and future guest of the show, Andy Greenwald, thought if we leaned into the bit of trying to schedule you but never accomplishing it, it would be funny. I'm very glad that we have you here, Chris Ryan.
Thanks for having me, guys. We were getting into have my assistant reach out to your assistant territory.
We really
But I don't
were.
have an assistant, so that wouldn't have worked.
Have you not?
You deserve an assistant.
Thank you.
I sense you're really busy.
It comes in clusters. Like
Yeah.
I'll have like a very busy 2 hours, and then I don't know what to do with myself for the rest of the other 22.
Have you not done the thing where you set up like Chris Ryan assist at gmail.com?
Can you do that
100%.
and just like have AI do it, or just?
It's that thing where
Fiverr? Maybe Fiverr
Yeah.
does it? I don't know who does it.
I think you could just control it, but you can talk about yourself in the third person to be like, if it's something that you
right.
don't want to do or you want to buffer, you can just be like, hey, Chris isn't available that day, but thank you so much for reaching out. So it takes the pressure off
I like
you.
having the air of mystery of just like, why isn't he available?
Yeah.
Wow, why didn't he write back?
You can also create a fake publicist email and then create a bunch of characters.
It's true.
You can talk to my fake agent.
My Chris Ryan email cinematic universe. Where's this going?
There's all these filters. Okay, my publicist said it's okay, but now you got to go through my agent.
Yeah.
I can't wait
He's
till
a
you,
bastard.
I can't wait till you
Notoriously
actually
bad at getting back
You
on
guys
email.
are not going to want to mess with Barry. He really takes a pound of flesh, man.
I can't wait until you actually have to hire an assistant to manage all these extra emails you created.
Your stylist.
Yeah.
Chris Ryland stylist at Gmail.
For those that don't know, and I'm sure most of you do, you were an editor at the Ringer Network.
The Ringer website. I was an editor at the Ringer. Yeah, one of the founding members of the Ringer.
And you co-host the Watch podcast.
I do for my sins. Yes.
You do. Oh, Walsh, you're going to enjoy this. You are somebody that thinks I consume a lot of media. I don't think there is a human being that is somehow able to consume more media than Chris Ryan.
Yes,
you are prolific.
I think I'm trying to get more selective or better about like quitting fast when I know it's not working out with me in media. But yeah, I think I need a detox at some point soon. Yeah, I'm maxed out.
Quitting fast meaning if a show doesn't deliver, you're not hanging in for all 10 or whatever?
I think with shows specifically, it's funny because we're going to talk about a movie that I did not love the first time I saw it and have grown to really, really appreciate over the years. But with TV shows, I think I can start to sniff out like, oh, I don't think this one's going to work for me for whatever reason. And sometimes it'll be stuff that I'm very interested in, but the execution is such that I'm just like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And the pod that Andy and I do, we don't always stick with shows the entire season, so we'll talk about a couple of episodes and then maybe hit it at the end. So we don't really need to be there constantly. But yeah, sometimes right now when we're recording is a very overwhelming moment because there's like 10 shows on it seemingly that a lot of people want to talk about that we're knee deep in.
Can I ask you a question? And it's okay if you don't want to give me like the full answer.
Sure.
Do you guys feel pressure to cover something that isn't necessarily your speed but is incredibly popular?
Well, that can go both ways. So yes. So like in the case of a show like Adolescence, which is just out on Netflix as we're recording this, I just knew that I could see from social media and from the Netflix ratings, the charts, and just from the vibes I was getting that this was like becoming a huge talking point and that like a lot of people were watching it over the first weekend. And I'm so glad that I went along with the crowd and checked it out. There are some times where I think with some of the superhero genre stuff that we kind of need to pay the bills a bit. Like we're like, this is still sort of the biggest thing out there. So we got to check in. And I also think weirdly, we have a lot of fun making fun of it. And then when it hits, like in the case of Andor or something like that, we're like, I'm 13 again. This is the best thing I've ever seen. So it more or less like I think we feel a little bit of pressure, but it's good pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to, if you're just like, look, we don't want to cover
Lord of the Rings show is a really good example where it's
Yeah.
just like, man, it's not going to happen with us.
Bezos loves Lord of the Rings.
He does, and he's always right.
He threw the money at that one. He threw the money at that one.
Can I tell you guys something? I love the Lord of the Rings show, and I never read the books.
I watched the first season.
I love the Peter Jackson movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this is just like a giant IP thing. I really liked it. I watched it twice. We watched it with the family. I'm into the second season. We haven't finished it yet, but I am into this. It hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Was part of it your kids' enjoyment of it, or was it solely?
It was just Annie and I that watched it the first
okay.
time, and I found it sort of genuinely thrilling in a way that I almost felt like TV shows sometimes aren't, in that, like, I like it now when TV shows really do take their time to build, and I felt like that one was one that was like, we're not going to give everybody everything. And in a way, we were texting about this over the last couple days. I feel like this season of The White Lotus is doing that for me as well. I've really enjoyed what a slow burn it is, and I don't know that has hit for everybody. But I don't know. I really dug the Lord of the Fellowship or whatever.
There's a couple of like plot lines on that show that I'm just like, I just simply don't care about. Like this, honestly, this like part of this Middle Earth, like, and then I think that show has a issue that a lot of these IP shows have, which is this. Well, in the case of Lord of the Rings, this kind of like, okay, you guys gonna show me Sauron or what? Like, how many nickels do I have to put into the machine until this eye shows up, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that happens. Honestly, it kind of is the same thing with White Lotus, where they open with the crime, so it's always in the back of your mind. Now, many people could turn that off and just be like, it'll come when it comes, and I'm patient. But I think what television used to do was just give you a premise, and then be like, yeah, we'll let it run as long as people want to watch it. And now it's like, we're going to give you an end point. So whether it's a prequel, like with Lord of the Rings, where you're like, well, I know they're eventually going to do this, 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 and this, and we have to meet this guy. So when's that happening?
Yeah.
But I kind of prefer my television to be more experiential, and like, these are characters that I like, and it's kind of like why I like some of the Taylor Sheridan shows, is like a lot of the time it's like they're just on this ranch. The ranch is cool.
Yeah.
I don't really know what we're going to be doing here, but there is like an old school pleasure to it.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, do you remember that? It was like a tweet from years ago about modern TV, which was like, back in the day, if you had like a surfing vampire show, every show would just end with the vampire surfing.
Yeah.
But now it's like the first 10 episodes are going to be that vampire, like he'll buy the surfboard in the last 10 minutes.
No, first there's a preamble about how his dad died surfing.
Yes.
So surfing is his way to like heal the old wound. Yeah, for sure.
I also wanted to throw this out that, and I did follow up with our mutual friend, Andy Greenwald.
Yeah.
Very sorry, Andy. This is for the one listener, Andy. I'm so sorry that we didn't continue
Andy's
on
not listening.
with
Don't
this.
worry about it.
He's not listening.
He's busy.
That you, in a way, invented a certain type of blogging and internet writing that is very familiar to people.
Me personally?
You personally.
I didn't know that.
That you have been described this way to me a few times, and I think it maybe started with your letters to Jay-Z blog.
Yeah. I had a blog spot back in the aughts that I had a couple. I was basically like I was kind of like just trying to figure out who I was in New York. I was working retail, and this was great era of retail, where they would give you 2 hours of work, and then you would have 6 hours to try to like smoke cigarettes or do other stuff. And so I was working in the back of a record store, and after I was done ordering and pricing stuff, I would just kind of look at the internet, and there was a little bit less of a conscientious, like, you didn't think you'd never be able to make money off of being on the internet, so you would just do it for your own entertainment and the entertainment of like 5 or 6 other people. And so I wrote a blog about the NBA for a while. And then I was writing a lot about rap music for music magazines and newspapers. So I started writing. I felt like I couldn't get all of my feelings out in these predetermined formats that were music reviews or profiles or anything. So I just used this blog as like kind of a canvas. That sounds pretentious, but it was just sort of like for fun. Mm-hmm. And I guess that is something of a calling card, but like it was a very strange experience to like go back and look at those things now, because they don't make any sense.
Yeah. Is that what started you on the path that you're on now?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like get noticed from that? Is that how you ended up?
Yeah, I mean, like, in a minor way, and I think that just made me feel like I want to write in my voice, and that was hard in the aughts, like to feel like you were coming through the writing because you were kind of always writing for the institutional house style. So if you were writing for The Voice, there was a lot of freedom, but you still had to do certain things. Certainly if you were writing for like Spin or Fader or Vibe or something, you had to kind of do the thing that the magazine wanted you to do. And then there were a lot of editorial questions that they would ask that I personally didn't care about. So like if you were like, this new band is good, they'd be like, why them and why now? And I'd be like, I don't know, because I listened to them last week and they're really cool. Or I would be like, they actually mean something to like a group of kids here or there or whatever. And I just felt like I couldn't really ever translate what I wanted to say with how that was expected to be said in those magazines, even though I wrote a bunch for them. And so writing on the internet was kind of writing for myself, you know, and that is something that I think we've probably gotten away from a lot because everybody is so completely aware of what other people think of what they've just said seconds after they've said it. So I think we kind of lose a little bit of like individual expression in that sense because people get so inhibited so fast. But that era of writing and like what I was writing about was really probably more about myself, you know, than it was about Jay-Z or anything. But yeah, I mean, I think I did that. I started writing about like soccer and basketball, like semi-professionally. Like I would get like a Wall Street Journal live blog of a World Cup game or something like that. And then when Grantland started, I had been writing about a bunch of different stuff enough that I got a look in there. And that was the first big job in my life.
And you moved from Grantland.
Yeah, we did Grantland from 2011 to 2015, and then we did The Ringer from 2015 till current day.
So you're a professional culture critic.
Yeah, against my better
in the
judgment.
vein of a Chuck Klosterman.
Yeah, and Chuck was the person who basically got me my in at Grantland. Like Chuck and Bill were looking for people to staff this website, and that's how Andy got his job there as the TV critic. And I was originally a sports blogger and then a sports editor, and then a guy named David Jacoby, who still podcasts for The Ringer now, thought Andy and I had some good chemistry and was like, well, he's the TV writer, so why don't you basically throw him bounce passes and ask him questions about stuff. And so we started recording a podcast back in 2012 called The Hollywood Prospectus, and we've been potting for 13 years now.
When did you switch
Wow.
over?
Yeah. What's that?
That's an early era.
Yeah, Marin just beat us, you know?
God damn.
He is like the granddaddy.
Yeah.
That's the one that everyone sort of knows. Yeah.
What were you saying? When did I just...
When did you guys switch over to calling it The Watch?
When we moved to The Ringer. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we moved from ESPN to Independent to The Ringer, we started calling it The Watch. Yeah.
This was something that I feel like I might have even asked you before because we met for the first time when Veep was on, and I went on The Watch. And I had met Andy one time before. We had never met. We connected about golf, which is something that everybody loves when you talk about golf on podcasts. Everybody's like, this is so interesting.
Yeah. We could talk about Zinn now if you want.
Are you on Zinn too? What is happening?
Yeah.
Guys, be careful. I danced with nicotine for 25 years.
That's the problem. So did I.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're back. This
No,
is
it's
the
not
least
back.
harmful
I've never
form.
gotten off of it.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really wanted to quit nicotine. I just wanted to quit smoking.
Yeah, I danced with smoking nicotine forever. Yeah.
There
Be
is that
careful.
I would say a lot of text that we send each other, the subtext is smoke, the subtext or just the text is smoking fucking rules, right? Like that's kind of the coolest thing a human being can do.
Yeah.
But I remember, so I went on to talk to you guys about Veep at that time, and I believe you guys were doing all of like the immediate reaction live video podcasting for Game of Thrones as well.
We did it. We started that at Grantland, I think. And then as Game of Thrones got bigger and bigger, we did one season of it where they actually put our video reactions on what I think was HBO Go or whatever, an early iteration of the streaming service.
You're watching it as it...
After the episode would end, you could then watch like After the Thrones or Talk the Thrones or whatever. And we did one season of that on HBO, but I think that if I remember correctly, like our interest in solving Game of Thrones and being like, I think this is going to happen, did not quite jibe with like Game of Thrones wanting to be like, we want like secrecy and a
Yeah.
suspension of disbelief about like we don't want people predicting how this is going to end. We want it to be kind of in the moment.
Yeah.
But we've continued to do those. And yeah, we were doing I think we did some stuff for Breaking Bad. We were doing a bunch of like after shows, and that kind of dovetailed with the way that the media changed, and certainly the way we did sports coverage changed. Whereas like, for instance, at Grantland, we would publish our last piece around 6 o'clock Eastern time. We would all go home and take naps and then watch sports all night, because we was mostly a sports website. There was a pop culture aspect, but we were very sports driven. And something would happen at night or then, late at night, and we would be like, we'll hit it the next day. We'll get to it. And that was like also how people experience sports for most of their lives.
Right.
It's like you read about in the newspaper the next day. And then there was a couple of things that happened during the Ringer, NBA trades or whatever. And we were like, no, we should podcast about it like literally right now. Like before we even know the ink is dry on the trade or anything. And we kind of applied it to culture as well. So that way, when something incredible happens, you're kind of like, I'm here for it. Now you also have a lot of episodes where you're like, my God, it's Sunday night and we're podcasting and nothing happened. But yeah.
All right. So if you like what you're listening to, guys, guess what?
You can find the rest of it on Patreon. All you got to do is you go to patreon.com/second in command and subscribe for $5 a month, and you have access to the entire Veep Rewatch catalog, which you cannot get anywhere else. Lots of bonus content, and
The rest of this episode,
the
quite
rest
frankly.
of this episode that you were enjoying. So we'll see you over there, patreon.com/second in command. And here's one other thing. If you sign up on your mobile browser or on desktop, you will avoid a 30% upcharge from Apple. So if you want to pay Apple more money to get the same content, you absolutely can. After you sign up on your mobile web browser or your desktop, you can then use the app and you won't get that 30% upcharge. Just letting you know.
I think I understand what you mean.